Yeah.
All right.
And
So now, Alex Thompson, welcome to Utah Valley University. We already
gosh.
gave you a hint of boy, the reaction tonight to this film was so great. And can you just, so I'm not the bad guy, can you explain while you're sitting there by yourself?
Yes, yes. I really apologize, guys. So Kelly O'Sullivan and I are partners in life as well as professionally. And I'm sitting in our house right now, and we have a toddler, and he's been having major sleep issues. And so one of the symptoms of that is a preference for his mom. So just as you probably have a preference for Kelly, he does too. And so she is managing that right now. Um, it's not pretty, but I'm really happy to be here with you, and I promise I can answer any question you have, um,
It's
and
it's
I'll
it's
do so kindly and patiently.
It's fine. We are so understanding. A lot of people here are big fans of St. Francis, so I'm sure they're very sad.
Oh
But that
yeah.
said, wonderful film. I'm going to ask some questions. We actually have a long line of people here who have already queued
Oh
up to
great,
ask you questions, so I don't want to take anything away from them.
great.
But I want to talk. I want to just ask you a little bit about what's the best way to say this? Kind of like being a regional filmmaker, right? Because you're
Hmm.
Chicago based
Yeah,
and you have sort of, I think you've kind of spoken a bit about a Chicago sensibility before. And I think a lot of these, by the way, I'm sure you know Jennifer Reeder, filmmaker,
yeah.
and she's a dear friend of mine and has done this a couple of times for me and actually has participated with
Oh,
UVU quite a bit. Um, so uh,
yeah.
so yeah, one of my
She's
best friends.
wonderful.
Yeah. Anyway, but can you talk? A lot of our students, I think, really like the idea of like staying around here. It's a lovely place to
Yeah.
live and making films in a local way. And can you kind of address that and maybe address the lure of New York or LA and kind of how you've navigated that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, actually. Being Chicago based is really interesting because a lot of people come to Chicago the same reason they come to Pittsburgh or Atlanta. They get drawn by a tax credit, which presupposes that you have a budget and a movie. And the nice thing about just being here is you're writing about the world around you. And so that means more specificity. You know your pool of actors. Um, Chicago is great because we have a really amazing theater community. So it's not like we're having to fly people in. I mean, in Ghostlight, everybody on screen except for Dolly DeLeon is a Chicago local. Um, they've been working in the theater community for, 30, some of them for 30 years. Um, Kelly and Keith did a show called The Humans, which ended up going to Broadway, becoming a film, won the Tony for Best New Play. They did not go to Broadway, but they originated the roles in uh, at American Theater Company in Chicago.
Mhm.
And that was one of my first gigs. I shot the trailer for that show.
Mm.
Um, that's where I met Kelly. Um, and I met Keith, and then I produced a micro budget film, cast Keith in it, all the while both of us thinking, God, I've got to make something for Keith someday. And I think the happy ending of that instinct is yes, there are movie stars in New York, there are movie stars in LA. There are people who you might want to cast or might feel pressure to cast because they give you value of some kind who aren't movie stars even. But there are movie stars in your own backyard who you know that they're stars, but nobody else does yet.
Right.
And I think Keith is one of those people. And the only way that you know that is by being a part of a community.
Mm.
Um, I think sometimes when you're chasing the coasts, you're you're by necessity kind of walking into someone else's community. And you're really at the mercy of the gatekeepers in those communities. So New York and LA are wonderful, big, sprawling worlds, but it takes a lot of effort. Like I don't know the gatekeepers in New York and LA. It takes I have to already make a film to get in those offices, to get in
Yeah.
those rooms. Um, and so I think when you kind of invest time and energy in the place where you are, you end up, as long as you end up with a good movie at the end of it, it'll get there. It'll get where it needs to get. Truly, I really believe that. You just have to be willing to make it for a lot less than everybody else.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful, wonderful. These guys are going to come down. They're going to sit down. They're going to say their name and where they are in school, junior, freshman, whatever, whatever. And take it away, guys.
I,
Thank you so
that's
much.
great.
So lovely to meet
I
you.
like this setup.
It is pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah. And Duane, your outfit gets better and better. Like you stood up and all the colors were revealed. This is That's some good cinematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello.
Alex. I'm James Loveland. I'm a senior and I'm a director. I was really curious about you co-directed this film with Kelly. I was
Yeah.
curious about like what that process was like. I know that she'd written St. Francis and you directed that one. What was that transition like, I guess, collaboratively? I know you guys are life partners and that's probably makes the collaboration
Yeah.
really natural and easy, but I'm just curious
And
about what that was.
harder too, I think, in some ways,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because you can't, at the end of the day, you can't go home to your partner and say, God, the asshole at work, like, fuck them. Like, um, so you, and you can't be like, that person made me so mad. I'm going to set a meeting for next week and I'm
Yeah.
going to really talk to them about it.
Hmm.
Instead, you get home and immediately it's like, this person made me mad and they're standing in my kitchen.
Yeah.
Um, which means that, like, in some ways it means that the communication is a lot more direct. So
Mm.
you get through things a lot more quickly. Um, but no, in St. Francis, I mean, I was really worried taking St. Francis on because the films that I love are not like indie dramedies. Like those just, I love indie dramedies, but they aren't like the movies when I think of like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and watch a movie. I grew up watching like Casablanca and Lawrence of Arabia and Paul Thomas Anderson films, and so the idea of like making a movie about a that sort of fits very neatly into like a indie dramedy lens, I was kind of nervous about it because it didn't feel 100% like me, and the way in ended up being the humanism and that I saw in filmmakers like Hal Ashby and Sidney Lumet, just like the focus on character and story. Um, but it's a very much Kelly's story, and the abortion. And at that time in 2018, 2019, I think people were asking a lot of really good questions about like who gets to tell these stories and why. Um, and so I was very deferential to the script and very, very like my DP and I, we would say we just need to get out of the way of the script because the script was really good. I didn't need to do like the Alex Thompson spin on St. Francis. Like,
Right.
all right, good script, but what's my take on the abortion story? Um, and so already there was like a more collaborative relationship than most screenwriters, and Kelly's the face of the film.
Right.
So there was a lot of trust there because she didn't watch a single take, she watched
Wow.
it at the end when it was done. Um, so in some ways, Ghostlight was easier because we were equal partners from the get-go. And so if I didn't like something, I could, I felt very comfortable being like, that doesn't feel real to me, or that doesn't
Yeah.
feel, or that joke's not funny to me. And so we set up this sort of system where unofficially it was like whoever cared the most kind of got their way. Because the last thing we wanted was to make a movie that felt like middle of the road. We wanted to make something that had edges to it. Um, so that's why, like, I give her a lot of credit, but like I really didn't get the fart in the bathroom. I was just like, you, like, what is your temptation to like? You have this great movie. Like, why do you want to put a fart in the middle of it? And she just felt really strongly that this was the right thing. Um, and I think it was the right move. It was a good fart. That fart, that was a Skywalker. I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt. It's a Skywalker Ranch fart right there. So it's a very expensive fart. Actually, it's two farts and then a pee, straight stream of pee, um, if I remember correctly. So
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty great.
thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
Well,
you.
hey, I'll tell Kelly. Yeah. But no, it's good being a director. You're a director.
Yeah.
It's if this is not a piece of advice, but like it is a job about curiosity. That's what's if you don't go in curious, you're never going to be surprised, and you're going to be a very bored director who gets what they want all the time. So you go in curious, and then you're always surprised, and you can build from there. But what that means is that you can work with anybody
Yeah.
because curiosity doesn't mean you're right all the time or you're, you know, the boss all the time. Doesn't mean you can't share autonomy. So yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you. I appreciate your answer.
Yeah, of course, of course. Thanks for asking. And how's my volume? Is my volume okay?
So good. Hi,
Okay.
Alex. I'm Joel. I'm a
Hi,
editor.
Joel.
I'm a senior here.
Awesome.
But I'm really fascinated by your movie. I thought the writing was ingenious and incredible. And I have a question about your casting because I heard that you casted an actual family for the family in this film. And I heard that that led to a lot of, ad-libbing came really easily, of course, and then the chemistry, you didn't really have to, it was already there, which is seemed like it streamlined a lot of things. But I had a question about what kind of challenges did you run into because of that, if any, and would you recommend it for directors out there who are casting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm so glad it's so cool that there's a classroom of directors and editors, and I'm sure many other disciplines. I mean, it did not present problems. I don't think I knew how like the family they were when we cast them. Like we knew Keith professionally, and Tara not at all, Catherine not at all. So they would come to set and they would be as professional as they could be. I now know that that means that they were holding a lot back because they're very like argumentative, excitable family.
Yeah.
And so it was nothing but a good thing. It was a really good thing.
There you go. I only asked because I'm thinking
Yeah.
of like me and my family. I don't know if it would have worked out quite as well,
Yeah.
you know.
No, as long as the cameras are rolling, I'm sure it would have been great.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to let them be themselves. And they took a lot of ownership. Like, Keith asked if he should shave for we'd already done a take. He asked if we should shave for the scene where they're getting ready to go to the deposition. And Tara was like, we don't have any time. Or she was like, I don't know, maybe. And he said, we don't have any time. And she was like, well, why'd you ask? And then we were like, hey, so there's nothing scripted in that scene. It's just they get ready to go. That's it's an eighth of a page. And they made all that up, and uh, they really they really had fun. So, and having fun shows up on camera, So,
Cool. Thank you, Alex.
yeah, yeah, of course. Good luck making your future feature film with your family, I hope. That's
Hi, I'm Annika. I'm hopefully going into the directing track here at EVU. I know Kelly isn't here, but I figured you could probably answer since you were both working closely. I was interested in the writing as a woman writing sort of male grief. And I read a little bit about an article that you guys did an interview in where she talked about like letting the story kind of tie its own ends. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about the process of writing this specific kind of story with the message that you ended up with?
Yeah. Well, from the very beginning, before it was even a script, it was like a very long text message that was basically the entire film. And I was really kind of shocked by that and like jealous of how easy that was for her. But it was always a male construction worker. And she was like really kind of, I think, felt like a little bit frustrated by that because it was like coming off of St. Francis, which feels like this. And really, in every single interview and in every single meeting, saying over and over, I'm interested in stories that center women. Um, but I think when thinking of this story culturally, men have such a problem with expression and repressed emotions, and it leads to so much harm and so much damage. Um, and I think that it felt right that the person who will eventually benefit from this experience should be the person who has the longest journey to go, you know, to get from to get on stage doing Romeo, who's the furthest from it, and who's the furthest from their son, who's the furthest from this character who feels so much, um, and it really just came out the way that the story interwove. I know that she knew that she wanted to explore Romeo and Juliet and start looking at the story from the perspective of the parents. And what I find really fascinating is that, Kelly's also a theater maker. She's an actor and a director. And something that you do always with Shakespeare is you typically edit it. It's typically abridged somewhat because the scenes are very, very long. They have digressions. And I had never heard I'd never heard the scene where her dad finds her body. I'd never heard that scene before, ever. I'm sure it was in the Baz Luhrmann film, but that's not the part of the movie that I really remember. And I remember sitting in the theater, the big elementary school theater, when HB did that monologue for the first time in the rehearsal before Keith does it. And everyone like spontaneously started crying. I mean, we all felt so emotional because for the first time we were really centering our perspective on the grief of the parents and that loss. Because everybody talks about like, oh, what a loss, what a stupid fucking story. Like these teenagers, they don't know each other, but um, we don't often talk about it from the perspective of the people who survive. Um, and that's grief. Grief is that we're still here, and we have to carry the thing that's gone. I think that was the impetus for it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I'm sorry I'm not Kelly. I'll be saying that for a long time.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm an editor and
Hello.
I'm a senior.
Hey.
My question was kind of already taken, so I'm trying to think of another one. But before that, I just wanted to say that was a very powerful movie. Still a little emotional about it. If it's okay with you, I want to ask another question about writing.
Yeah, of
When it
course.
comes to dialogue, this movie in particular had very grounded dialogue. When I write dialogue in my scripts, I feel like when I'm actually writing it down, that I'm like this is awesome, and then someone says it out loud, and I can't help it. But like it just doesn't sound the same when someone says it out loud. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you approach dialogue, and um, how do you approach dialogue?
That's a great question. And I have to say that I think everybody has the feeling that you have where it doesn't feel it doesn't feel real. Yeah, like in your head it's like the diction is perfect. And um one thing that Kelly and I do with everything, whether it's a script she wrote or I wrote, is we have readings um with friends and actors that we think will do a good job, and we just read the thing. And it's really helpful to hear it out loud, obviously. And then they talk about it. And actors are like machines of, they talk about meaning all, automatically. They're always looking for meaning. And so it's really great because it's like a stress test for your, you know, your level of intention. And I think oftentimes when we're writing, when it doesn't work, it's usually because it's too much. And typically it's paring it back and figuring out the right things to say. Um, is ambiguity the right move in this moment? Is clarity? What does the audience need? For instance, the scene uh, where they're convincing him to play Romeo before the show, and we don't know if he's going to do it. There was a moment where Kelly and I just had a conversation, and we said, Catherine just needs to tell the audience exactly what his problem is. When he gets mad, he either blows up or leaves. Um, he has to commit, and the benefit of committing is he gets to be Brian for a couple of hours. And as abstract as that is, it, that's that we just have to say it so that when it happens, it's in people's minds. And that might be something that really is tempting to Dan, you know, um, rather than kind of talking around it or thinking of a clever way to, you know, it's a pretty short scene. We were just trying to pull scenes for an acting exercise we're doing at Chicago International that Kelly's doing, and they're pretty short, for the most part. It's really in and out, and it's just like, what are these people saying? What are they really saying? Are they saying what they mean, or are they saying something to distract from what they mean? Um, but most of the time, the question is like, what does the audience need to know, or what do they need to feel? Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
yeah. I hope it was helpful.
It was.
Okay.
Hi, Alex. How's it going?
Good.
Good. My name's Riley. I'm also an editor. I'm a junior this year. But something I really loved your film. Something that really I noticed that really stuck out to me was your sound design and your score of your film. Felt like really was amazing and really came together. So my question for you was that something that you sort of had planned out earlier in the production, or is that something you feel like came together kind of in that final edit?
Sound design definitely comes together in post mostly. There's a lot of, every film we do, I think because we do all of our films at Skywalker, which is a great, really reputable place. So, but my thought is like, if you have a really shitty car, you better put a nice coat of paint on it. And so like actually rather than thinking like, oh, we have to wait till we make a Star Wars film to get to Skywalker. My thought was always like, well, we made a movie for $70,000, so we better have good sound. Um, because otherwise people are going to be distracted by everything else that's lacking. Um, so every film since then, we've gotten a little bit better and a little more sophisticated in the way that the sound team sort of records the film. So like on the last film we did, the Steel Harp, I mean, there are probably like 7 or 8 hidden uh, lavs just all over the set. And so that the sort of sound picture was like really sophisticated and really broad. And but you know, on St. Francis, it was a boom op and a mixer, but or it was the same person, a boom mixer. Um, so I would say that the sort of the fidelity of sound recording gets more intentional, but the actual sound design is pretty on these films is pretty um, pretty much the last thing we look at. I think if there were more, like for instance, the opening of Ghostlight is like pretty cinematic, right? It's like it's these curtains that open, and so you have the sound of the orchestra warming up. You have this the Oh What a Beautiful Morning. These kinds of things are predetermined or pre-visualized, but a lot of the other stuff isn't. Like a lot of it is problem solving, you know. Do we need to have a sense of Dan losing control in moments when he gets angry? So that's where like this sort of like bleeding, uh, sort of like what do you call it? A flashbang sound, kind of a grenade sound comes from where Dan's walking away and like the sound drops out and like is that going to be a quality? Um, and then the music, we temp the whole movie with typically with other people's score. But for Ghostlight, Quinn San started recording really early. So we were temping with her demo stuff. So we almost never put in other people's music in Ghostlight specifically. But we just did two films back to back, and they were temped to, I mean, insanely like um, you submit to festivals with your temp music often, which is scary because people might not, people might be really liking your someone else's, the score to What There Will Be Blood is like really good, and maybe that's what they like, not your. Um, but yeah,
Cool. Thank you so much.
yeah, yeah.
Hello. My name
Hi.
is Everett. I'm a junior writer director. I just want to say Ghostlight, I found it to be very beautiful, very touching. So it was a great experience.
Thank you.
You made St. Francis, Roundings, and then Ghostlight. That's three feature films in the span of like 5 years. To me, that seems super impressive. I mean, it is really impressive. And so what I wanted to know is, how do you get that ball rolling? How do you get that first feature out there? And then how do you keep that ball moving and just keep continually putting stuff out there?
Well, that's a good question, Everett, because I think every movie, I'm afraid that there's not going to be a next movie. Um, I heard some interview with Cameron Crowe where he was talking about Crosby, Stills, and Nash, or it was, I think it was Crosby, it was David Crosby, and he was interviewing them back in like really early days of rock and roll or whatever. And he was like, yeah, man, we're just all kind of playing because we don't know how much time we're gonna have. Like how long are people gonna like this kind of music? Pay to see tickets. And of course, Crosby, Stills, and Nash is still playing, in concert. And, they're all billionaires, but I feel that way. And I don't think billionaire is down the line for indie filmmakers, where I kind of feel like, how long am I going to get to do this? I think for me, I learned really quickly with St. Francis that if you can make a film for less, then you are way more likely than anyone else to make a film. Um, Everyone is going to tell you that you need more, but if you like, if anybody tells you that, just email me and ask me how you can make it for less, because basically, like what you have should be enough, whatever that is. Um, and we just did a film called Mouse. Uh, well, here, very briefly, St. Francis, $75,000, basically. Then we raised a little bit more to finish it. But miraculously got into South by Southwest. And then that kind of kicked off a string of festivals and attention. We got agents, then COVID, and the film got a theatrical, release, but then COVID hit. And so COVID shut down everything. I wrote this horror film, Rounding, with my brother. I thought this will be a walk in the park. We shot it before vaccines were out. It was not a walk in the park. It miraculously again premiered at Tribeca. It had a totally messed up sales life, and only just now, like earlier this year, premiered in theaters and has, Music Box Films bought it. But like in that span of time, we made Ghostlight because another film that was set up for 14 million lost everything. And so we said, well, why were we waiting all that time on other people's money? Why don't we go out and see if we can see whatever we can raise, and let's make Ghostlight for that. And what we could raise was $500,000. So we made Ghostlight for that. And then that miraculously got into Sundance. So it's like, I think the biggest key is make sure that what you're doing, you care about, and make sure it's good. As shitty as that sounds, if you're going to be stressed out about something, stress out about whether it's good. I hate being stressed on films. I think it's the most fun place in the world. I love making movies, but occasionally you are the one who's gonna, like, the director's number one job, I think, is you get to say that you're moving on. You get to say, we're done with this shot and we're going to the next shot. We got that performance, so we're going to the next performance. And so you got to know, you got to have the feeling. Because I think a good movie with no movie stars is a lot more likely to do well than a bad movie with movie stars or a bad movie without movie stars. So, and movie stars cost money, and you have to wait for money.
Yeah.
So truly see if you could make a really good movie that means something to you for as little as humanly possible, and submit it to every festival that has a market, um, and really that's the key is you just have to, the momentum really comes from you, and it comes from the writing. Like, unfortunately, it's very unlikely that without an agent, you get paid to write at this stage. Like, I'm barely getting paid to write these days. Like, it's very hard, but because I enjoy writing, I will go out and chase down like a script about Wyatt Earp that I really care about, and like write that, because nobody is going to pay the director of St. Francis to write a script about Wyatt Earp. But
I'd love to see that personally.
Well, here's hoping. So yeah, I think you gotta love it, and you gotta just hold it to a standard. That doesn't mean to keep something so precious that you break it. Hold something so tight that you never let it go. Get it good and start on the back of a napkin and figure out, what do you actually need to tell this story. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. And if I could just sneak a small question in there, because I don't think I'll get another chance. Why is it called Ghostlight?
It's a great question. So in the theater, there's a tradition that it's actually for safety reasons, that a light is left burning in the middle of the stage when nobody's in the theater, when it's dark. But it's also a superstition that it's to light the way, the ghosts of the theater. And depending on how good the projection was, there may or may not be a ghost in Ghostlight. And so, yeah, and it's Shakespeare, so there should be a ghost.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Nate. I'm a junior and I'm an editor. And I just wanted to ask you about your process about cutting a scene, and if that changes when you're a director working with an editor versus being a director and editing at the same time.
Yeah, a lot more straightforward being a director editing, but I'm not a good editor. And by that I mean, um, if Kelly were to say to me, I feel like this scene is slow. Can you give me four versions of this scene? I would be like, um, frustrated by that suggestion. And I would probably just say, well, let me just make it better. And then I'll show it to you when it's better. But Mike Smith, our editor, will say he will take the 350 notes that I sent him and he will experiment with them and, you know, get inspired in the middle of the night and change the timeline and switch things up and start a scene in a close up that I imagined in a wide or, you know, he's like, like while you're sleeping, your editor is thinking about the movie in the same way that when you were making it, when everyone else was sleeping, you were thinking about the movie. Um, and something really fun happens when you get out of, they kind of pull you editors, you pull us out of our own heads. Um, I often shoot a scene for the edit. And what I typically do is I save a piece of coverage or a type of coverage for a specific part of the scene. So oftentimes it's like wide shot, and then we may jump into close-ups, and then maybe we play with eye line. And so the final moment of the scene is like straight on eye line, and it's meant to be a sort of punch or a button. And what Mike might say is like, actually, we're going to start on eye line, and then we're going to end the scene in this question, this place of uncertainty, and we're going to end in the wide shot. And I might think that's totally wrong. And then I watch this scene in the context of the whole film, and it has a different flow, or it needs something. It needs a rhythm thing that isn't there. Um, so yeah, I think on St. Francis, I really cut from instinct. That movie was cut in 10 days, and I locked it alone in my parents' house. I just at the kitchen table, I said, "Okay, it's done." Um, I didn't show it to people. I didn't like. I was just like, "Yeah, that's it. That's as good as it's gonna get." I'm not. I pulled it off. Um, but with an editor, you have another brain who's thinking how, okay, people are watching this and saying that the first 30 minutes feels slow. What is it? What do they actually mean? What's the note behind the note? I'm going to try a couple things. I'm going to, you know, and it's good to have process. And it's hard to have process with yourself by yourself. Um, so I think you're a very important part of the process. As Fred, like literally for Ghostlight, I think I sent like 250 notes on email, and then we got in the room for 3 weeks. Um, and but it's really fun because a good editor is never sitting there thinking what you think they're going to be thinking, which is, you idiot, why did you do it like this? Usually they're thinking, like a good editor is like a perennial optimist. They're just sitting there going, this is what we have, this is what the movie could be. And you're sitting there thinking, this is what's in the script, or this is what's in my head. And I think the great thing about you is you know what's there, what's actually there, and that's like pretty miraculous. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
of course,
Before you ask, I want to pop in here. We've got 5 more people after him who want to ask you questions. Are you up for it? I know you don't
of
sleep that
course.
much. You've got a toddler, you can't sleep often, so might as well stay up with us.
I'm not
You're going to
asleep.
stay up anyway,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right. That's right.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good.
Good. My name is Max. I'm a sophomore and I'm a writer. I noticed earlier you mentioned that like indie movies aren't typically your genre. Is there any genres you and or Kelly want to explore in the future?
Great question. Kelly loves like a movie just dropped on Netflix called The Woman in Cabin Number 10 or something. Like she loves like murder mystery. She loves that stuff. And I'm sure she would love to do something like that. Um, I love I love heist films. Um, I don't know, I just love movies. I love movies. I mean, I don't know if any of you saw One Battle After Another yet, but you know,
Mm.
I love the way that it feels to like go to a movie and just feel like you're on a ride.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, yeah, I love that stuff. So um,
Mm.
I'm doing a body swap film in the spring, and I'm really excited about that because I think a lot of times we think of these genres as being kind of relegated to like big budget Hollywood films in the 90s, but you don't actually need a big budget to make a body swap film. You just need good actors, um, and a good script. And so I'm kind of excited about like liberating in the same way that you could imagine doing like a indie action film, like a real action movie.
Mhm.
But on a sort of indie scale or in an independent spirit. And as long as the stunts are amazing and the act and the story's great and you're pulled along, then it's going to be amazing, right? It'll be just as good as Mission Impossible. But it
Yeah.
has to be really good.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. What's your genre of choice? What are you
Oh,
interested
I really like comedies, basically. That's
in? Cool.
that's my thing. So yeah.
I love. Have you seen a movie that just I think it's on streaming now called Twinless?
Not yet, no.
It's very funny.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
Yeah, it has like I feel like act movies with actual jokes, like funny movies that have like set up punchline, you know, are
Hmm.
kind of rare these days. And
Yeah,
that movie's really funny and really compelling too. Twinless. Yeah.
Twinless. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Check
Yeah,
it
I'll
out.
watch it. Yeah. Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you for coming to talk with us. I've loved watching the movie before and listening to all your answers, the questions.
Oh, good. Well, I hope
Um,
I'm not boring.
no, it's good. It's good to be absorbing all of this. I enjoy it. My name is Amelia. I'm in my junior year studying post-production. Like I'd love to go into color or something like that. I liked this. I like English. I loved the cinematography in this film, but my question was actually also kind of about writing. Um, would you happen to know with the daughter character, there's a couple of scenes where she's talking in the car with her dad and just says some like very thoughtful, emotional things I that seemed a little bit like exposition, like not bad exposition, but I just noticed. And I was wondering if you knew, did you create the character and then you're able to give her those lines, like those things to say to her dad that were important? Or were you thinking a more the plot of like what does the main character need to learn and
Hmm.
just kind of tailoring the daughter's character around that?
It's a great question. Well, I know that Kelly, Dan was the first character that she sort of caught on, but immediately after, the daughter felt like a close second, if not a co-lead. And that became even more clear when Catherine was cast because Catherine is such a magnetic presence on screen. And Kelly actually, believe it or not, does not outline typically. She might, she really doesn't. She kind of free writes her scripts. And so they start really long. Like St. Francis was 165 pages in the first draft and then got whittled down to like 115 or something. And I think this was 145 to start. Um, and what I think is really clear when you're writing Daisy is that she is the person who Dan might be able to listen to, you know.
Mm.
I love the scene where she's talking about Greece, being in Greece and making out on stage, and because we get, I oftentimes I think about the scenes about as like what are we doing for the audience and what are we doing for the like what's just fun for the audience and what's for the story.
Mm.
And so we get the pleasure of seeing Dan's discomfort and then at the idea of his daughter making out with this guy upstage, and he's like, "Yeah, what was that? Like that seemed a little, oh, I forget exactly what he says, but he's like, that seemed a little overboard, uncalled for." But then we immediately get the payoff of she's using this story and she's using his discomfort to take him to a vulnerable place. And then what I love about Kelly's writing is she has no obligation to these story tropes. And so immediately the threat of being found out by the mom, right? He says, "Hey, keep this between you and me, right? Let's make this our little secret." Immediately that threat is exploded. Like immediately, the next scene that she's shoving him against the car and she's, "You fucker." Um, And what I think is so great about that is that Kelly is herself an audience to the story. And she's like, I don't want to bullshit and drag this up. Like, I don't want to spend more than 5 minutes wondering if he's having an affair. Like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want the audience to wonder it, you know? So the minute we worry about it, I'm gonna squash it. Um, And I think that's really fun because we get that like tickle, that familiar tickle of like, oh shit, is he gonna do it? Is he like what's going on here? And so we get the fun of that expectation, and then we get a totally different payoff. And it's just subverting, 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 subverting. And I think Daisy's a really great character to subvert because that's her whole thing. Her whole thing is that she's been underestimated in this house. She's done more work than she's given credit for. Just because she doesn't talk in therapy doesn't mean that she's not aware of what's going on. So Kelly plays, I think, with we get to see her through Dan's eyes, but then we also, you know, she also gives her the dignity of like Daisy's been living a life off screen for this whole film. And so when she comes on screen, it's not like she has been paying attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I hope that was helpful.
Hey, my name's
Hello.
Ephraim. I'm in writing and producing. I'm a senior, and I want to ask about something that we don't normally praise as much as we should, which is the budgeting
Yeah.
and the scheduling. Uh, this all looked really good. Can you can you tell us a bit about how you went around for this scale of project, scheduling and budgeting it? Knowing the things you had locked in, like the cast and locations and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
more and more films are like this, where it's low. It's like lower budget, but we can get a lot more out of it these days. And I think that's a skill we all need to get better at.
Yeah, I agree. I was watching a show on Netflix recently that I won't name because I'm sure people really like it. It's like a really big show. And I was like, why does this look like shit? It's an expensive show. Like it had all this money in it, and I think it's because especially on the bigger budgets, you forget that, like, for instance, so our locations, we committed to all of our locations starting at $0, and then we would go up from there to like $100 a day. That's very low for a feature film. $0 is as low as it gets. But what that meant was that like we said no to any place that was outside our budget range. And so it really limited where we were able to go. But then the places that so we spent a lot longer looking, because time is something that we can afford because we live in this place. So we can go out on a weekend and look at a house. But we also looked at places that were pre-dressed, so places that already looked the way that the sets should look. So that our like art budget was ultimately like a couple $1,000s total. We committed to a 13-person crew at most, but most days it was less than 9. So anything that we did, it had to be achievable with a 9-person crew. So art department wasn't doing anything that they couldn't do. Art department was a production designer and an intern. That's it. So when you see the cast building the sets, they're really building the sets. And all of the costumes are from the actor's own wardrobe. None of the costumes were purchased. It was $0. When you see them pulling costumes out of boxes, those are all donated from local theaters, and that's the first time the actors are looking through the costume. So they picked all their own wardrobe in that scene on camera. So you're actually seeing Rita find her Juliet dress, and you're actually hearing Daisy say, "Oh wow, that really suits you." Sorry, my cat is like circling me, ready to jump on my lap. Things like that, assumptions like that, because when you're budgeting, I'm sure you know this, but they're called critical assumptions. So assumptions like that mean that your bottom line is lower and lower and lower. Whereas if you are assuming that you're building all your sets, or assuming that you're tearing down, you're gutting and then redressing every place, or that every actor is going to have 3 looks. Dan and Daisy have 3 costumes the whole movie. It's a lesson I learned from reading about The Conversation, that Francis Ford Coppola put Gene Hackman in a yellow raincoat in almost every scene because he wanted the option of switching up the order of scenes. And I love that idea because, like, when do we ever notice in a movie? I notice more often when people are wearing radically different clothes every time we see them than when they're wearing the same, everybody's got a favorite sweat. Like I wear this sweatshirt like 5 times a week. So things like that, where you just make a decision that this is going to be okay. We didn't have hair and makeup, no hair and makeup at all. No trailers, obviously. My gosh, my cat is a tech. Okay, Olivia, you stay right there. With
How
love,
long did the
she's a
shoot
tech.
take?
I wonder if I can pull up the one-liner. I think it was 27 days. Oh, here we go. It was 24 days with a pickup, so 25 days. And then another thing that we do is we always set our camera budget really low. And we go to the local vendor and we say, this is what we have. That's all we have. And we're like, St. Francis was shot on the Alexa Classic because everybody was shooting on the Alexa Mini. Rounding was shot on the Alexa Mini, which was easy because it was COVID. Ghostlight was shot on the Mini because everyone had moved on to the Alexa 65 and the Minis were being used as doorstops. And then Mouse and the Steel Harp were shot on Alexa 35s because everyone was obsessed with the Alexa 65. So we just and then we focus on the lensing and really limit our lens package. It's really just like come in with as much intention as you can from the get-go and think like, what do we actually need? Yeah.
Thank you. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
3 more people.
I'm glad you're a producer. Words. I hope I don't see him sleeping.
Hello.
What is your
I'm
hello? What does your shirt say?
here. I can't get tall enough here. Wait,
I
actually.
may be wrong, but I doubt it. That's good.
Got it from my
That's
dad.
great.
That's his attitude about things.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm Jake. I'm a second year in college, whatever, and I'm hoping to go for directing. But my
Right.
question leans more towards like both writing and directing because I noticed through the movie that you kept the tragedy that happened, like the core point, hidden throughout the whole beginning. It was never truly said, never like you could tell something had happened, but you can't tell what happened. And my major question is, you as a director and writer, how did you keep the restraint to not like overdo your hand and like give it away too soon or wait till
Yeah,
that one moment in the camera? Yeah.
yeah. That's a good question. I mean, a lot of that was in the script, you know. I would say 70% of that approach was scripted. Um, and something I really believe is that you don't need to do things twice. So if a scene is dramatic, you don't need to shoot it dramatically. There's drama in the scene. Like if a character is feeling a lot of emotion, you don't, sometimes the worst thing you can do is to go in for a close up. Um, if there's, if, you know, music is often the biggest culprit in this, where music is tipping us off to something that we all already know or don't need to know. You know, do we need to know why um, Dan feels uncertain at the end of a certain beat? Or do we just need to feel the uncertainty and feel the unease? Um, do we need to know, you know, for instance, like I like the moment when the Hana, who plays the director, says like, you know, imagine um, your child dead, and then we cut to him, and he's he's very easily doing it, and
Yeah, I feel
we
like
know
if it
that
was
something.
I feel like if it was an anime, they would cut to the actual thing and then jump right back.
Right, yeah. Well, and you actually, what happens in that at the end of that scene is that you see Rita seeing him experience this moment, and then he retreats away from the camera
Mhm.
as everybody else continues the scene. And the impulse would be that we like stay with him and that he stays with us. But the truth is that Dan can't do that. He can't hold our gaze. And sometimes, um, anyway, what I've found is that films that I love tend not to give things away. They tend to, even if you're subjective in every other scene, in the moments when you're the most tempted to be subjective, I think be objective. Um, Lean on the actors and the script and the circumstance, um, or like change the eye line, right? Like you're shooting from one side of the room for the whole scene and then jump the line to
Mhm.
end it. Um, it's a really nice way. The audience doesn't, the audience only feels it. They don't notice it in an intellectual way
Mhm.
or in a story way. They just feel that something is off. Um, and a lot of times the place to put those little moments of those breadcrumbs is at the end of a scene. So we often try to create momentum in the edit through leaving breadcrumbs that are counter to the next moment. So end in a close up, cut to a wide, end in a wide, cut to a close up, start on static, end with movement, you know, and this creates momentum in your edit, within your edit.
Yeah.
And it helps too if in your camera language you have this baked in, like when the camera dollies, Dan is empowered to feel uh, when it's meaning like when it's moving with him. When it's
Mhm.
panning, Dan is unable to express himself. Um, or is feeling trapped. And so whether you feel it or not, that language is baked into the film. Um, and so in the deposition scene, when this like 9.5 page scene is handheld, we feel like it's an extension of the rehearsal room where everything is also handheld. Um, and so even though we're not putting him in the spotlight, we're implicitly trying to create a connection between the theater world and the deposition. Um, I mean, there's also in the dramaturgy of that scene, there's a backdrop, right? There's a psych behind him, which is the same in a theater, but not actually the rehearsal space doesn't have a backdrop, but we think of backdrops, we think of theater, and the deposition scene has one. And so maybe we also make a connection there. Um, I just think, coming in with as much intention as possible so that you can step back rather than step forward when you're tempted. If I can just say really briefly, I thought Keith like kind of shit the bed on the deposition scene. Not really. I'm being really coy, or I'm being silly, but like I remember thinking, and I've told him this, I was like, um, oh, he's not gonna cry. That's okay. That's okay. We don't need that. And then when I watched the scene in the edit, I realized that Dan couldn't go there. That that was something that he had to save for the performance. And that Keith knew that, of course, and that I was just this dumb director who was like, it's an emotional scene, so people need to cry. We just did a movie called Mouse, and the whole time Kelly and I were like, oh my God, the main character hasn't cried, and it's a movie about grief. And we just started getting feedback, and it's amazing to hear people be like, I cried for the whole movie. You don't have to, yes, it's true that we mirror things, but sometimes an audience is turned off by being told what to feel. Sometimes they really don't want to feel your influence. And I think that's when films kind of get us, is when we don't feel the influence of the filmmaker.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That to thought. Thank you.
I'm sure you are right, by the way.
We got two more. Two more. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jack. I'm a 4C and hopefully wanting to direct. So I thought the acting in Ghostlight was amazing. How did you go about directing the acting and getting like a good performance?
Well, you'll hear this more than once in your professional life, but really the first step is casting. You really want to find performers or people who have something inherently that shows up on camera that is interesting to you. And then what I've found is I find myself doing the worst job when I'm trying to get a specific performance out of a person. I try to think about story more often than performance. So like maybe they're not doing it the way that you imagined, but rather than trying to make them do it the way it is in your head, try to get them to tell the story that you need to tell in the scene. Because it's not their fault. They didn't ask to be cast. They did ask to be cast, but like you cast them, so it's your fault if they're not quite bringing the thing. And so figure out what they are bringing and then find a way to make that the whole point of the scene. So if the whole point of the scene when you wrote it is that this character is funny and this person isn't funny, then make the whole point of the scene that they're not funny. And then it'll be a really good scene because this person is bringing that thing that effortlessly, and everything else that you do with them is just bonus. Yeah, I would say that. I mean, it was very easy and very fun to work with these guys. And it didn't feel like directing can feel corrective when when you're not really, when it's not fun. And it shouldn't be. It should really be about exploring. Another great phrase to take into the next life is, okay, great, we got that. Now let's try a version where you do this. So that thing that they did, that was great. Now let's do the opposite. Now what does it feel like if you start the scene angry? What does it feel like if you start the scene, you know, confused, and you walk into the room and you're like, what did I just see? What does it feel like if we start the scene and you have to go to the bathroom really badly?
Yeah.
And if you don't get out of this conversation, you'll pee your pants in front of these people. All that stuff is fair game. And then at the very end, when you actually feel like you've got it, because you shouldn't lie to actors, tell them you feel like you got it and that you're going to do one more, and that this is it. So if they've got anything left to give, do it. And that's often the best take, because you're often wrong about everything you've made them do. And they had a good idea in there, but they just didn't know how to, they didn't want to be wrong. So it's kind of your job to be okay being wrong, so everyone else feels comfortable trying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Good luck with everything. That's exciting. So this is a great room.
Hi, Alex. My name is Raina. I'm a junior.
Hello.
Hello. I have more of a personal question. Feel free to answer however you want. But like St. Francis, that one was like reading the interviews and stuff. It sounded like it was really pulled a lot from personal experiences, and I just wanted to know if that was also involved in this movie.
Yes, I actually am a teenage girl whose father went through this. Kelly stole my whole life story. No, that's a really great question, and I would say that often Kelly is pulling from some element of her life. In this case, I think she was really thinking about like her dad and people, mostly the generation of men in her dad's generation who were raised to believe that maybe emotions were a liability or a sign of weakness, and
Totally.
kind of imagining that person getting to do the thing that she's done her whole life that has been so freeing and so wonderful. And then thinking like, okay, well, who would be the most extreme version of this? What would be the most extreme transformation? And at the same time that she was writing, National Theater had just put out a trailer for Romeo and Juliet. We did watch it. This was during COVID, actually, when she started writing. And the other thing that I don't think she talks about as much is that documentary, I Love You Now Die, had just come out, which was about the girlfriend who sort of coerced her boyfriend into dying by suicide. And it was all over text. It was a very complex, and I think she was charged with manslaughter or something. I don't know the legal terms, but that was really interesting. So that kind of inspired Brian's partner in the film, who I don't think I could have ever imagined being as good as Leah Kubala is in the movie.
She was amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's yeah.
Yeah, that part specifically actually was really touching to me. Like, as somebody whose family has been affected by a similar sort of tragedy, this was a really cathartic experience. So I just wanted to say thank you for this story. It was a beautiful, beautiful movie. So
I'm really glad you got something out of it. So
yeah, for sure. So I think I'm the last one. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Boy.
thank you.
Alex, thank you so much. I want to ask two more favors. First of all, thank you so much. It was a beautiful film. I hope that Kelly's all right and your little one just starts sleeping away. Trust me, as a
Sure hope
father,
so.
it gets better soon.
Praying for the melatonin. Yeah.
Soon they get older and they turn into college students, and so all those things will happen.
That's wild.
So I'd like to ask two quick favors. One, can you smile for the camera so we can use that as a thumbnail? It's
Yeah.
much better if I could take this here. So 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And also, I want to get all these guys down here in front of our screen and to have them take a picture with you up on the big screen that's up here.
Let's do it.
Is that okay? Cool. That would
Oh
be
yeah.
great. Guys, run down. Take a picture with Alex. Right in front of the screen. Don't trip on my cords. Screen, you gotta come here. Yeah, get down here, everybody. Get down here. And you can actually stand in front of you can squeeze in and stand in front of my computer there, because get in here, guys. If you're on the edges, stand in front of the computer there. Sure. They'll see your backs, but that's all right.
Oh, wait. Yeah, one more. I wasn't ready. I didn't know you were taking it that quick.
All right. That's better because I got a wire too. Where's my technology? 1, 2, 3, smile. There you go. Oh, smile. Right.
You want to get in this thing?
All right. Alex, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you guys. Thank you for
Really
great
appreciate
questions.
it. Have a great
Oh,
night.
I really appreciate it. You
Bye,
too.
Alex.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
I hear people saying bye, Alex.
Bye, Alex. Great film. We love it. I cried.
Thank you.
We
Thank
cried. I
you.
cried too.